Hello, guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 209 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we've got quite an assortment of animals here. We've got a couple returning ones. Both by, well, one's like a remaster, one's done by a different modder, but we've got a few animals coming back, but also quite a nice variety of other animals. Couple fish, lots of large carnivores for you guys today, because I know you guys like them. But yeah, let's get started. So we've got Jake Quanix not having just one but two mods today. We've got first up here, we have got the banded rainbow fish. Let's see if we can find one in the water for us to admire. They look like they're all on the land at the moment. Yeah, it does look like they're all on the land at the moment, which is a little bit annoying, but you can still see them quite clearly. Um, so this is the banded rainbow fish, known as Melotrena Trisciata, I believe you say that. It's also known as the dual rainbow fish, the Gaudy River rainbow fish, the three-striped sunfish, or the regal rainbow fish. So this is a species of rainbow fish that is found in the northern regions of northern Australia and Queensland. The adult ranges about a standard length of about 12 to 15 centimeters and has a deep body that usually extends about a third of its body length. Um, like other rainbow fish species, they vary in color depending on where they're collected, but all varieties have a distinct dark mid-lateral band in bright yellow, red, or red dorsal, anal, and caudal fins. It's kind of all the variety there. Let's see if we can get one that actually goes for a swim, because they seem to be all hanging around here at the moment. I don't know what's going on here. They just don't want to go swimming. Let's see if we can move one in the water. They can't move on it. There we are. Here's one in the water. Okay, so the behavior. These guys are an active shoaling fish, so that typically occurs on the surface or in the mid-level areas of freshwater environments. They're also a seasonal spawner, so the banded rainbow fish breeds intermittently throughout the year. Males will compete with one another for territory and female attention in contests where they compare body coloration and size by swimming side to side while extending their fins to appear larger. So that's another thing they like to do. And yes, he's coming back onto land again. Of course he would. But the other ones are starting to go down. That's alright, we'll carry on. Come on. Why none of you just going to stick on land for me? If you come onto the water, come down in the water for me. The joys of working with animals, folks. He's thinking about it. Anyway, we'll carry on. After mating, a typical female can produce between 200 and 500 eggs, which affixes to the vegetation and uses by using adhesive threads, so allows them to stick to plants and things like that. After this, the female will leave, while the male will continue to guard the territory, and by extension, the eggs until they hatch about 6 or 7 days later. So about a week later, that's when they kind of hatch. In terms of its habitat and diet, these guys live in a quite wide variety of habitats, such as rivers, lagoons, and slow-moving streams, although they prefer areas with strong water flow, sandy substrates, deep subsurface vegetation, and submerged logs and branches. And they're also opportunistic carnivores, with the bulk of their diet being arthropods, such as aquatic insects, arthropods, arachnids, crustaceans, as well as algae and terrestrial insects that have drowned on the surface, like green ants. So that's another quite interesting one there. So they all seem to be up on the surface at the moment. This could be one in the water. I think it's fun one. Yeah, bear. They really do seem to not like swimming today, which is interesting. Oh. That's good. Okay, so in terms of the etymology, the name Melatonina Trifscartia was proposed by Hamler Reindahl in 1922 when describing the species. So Trifscarta means three-banded, although the individual does not typically have more than a single band. This is because the original museum specimen had its patterns altered by being preserved in spirits. And in captivity, they are relatively new to the aquarium hobby. Until recently, they were only kept by a small amount of people. They since have become quite popular because of their ease of care, their energetic behavior, and their colourful patterns. However, they are like a hardy and peaceful shoaling species, so it makes them easy additions to the most peaceful community aquariums. And they are quite kind of hardy fish. They are quite good at adapting to a wide variety of different parameters of water. Like many other rainbow fish species, they should be kept in an aquarium with a lid because they are known to jump out. But yeah, that's another really cool species done by J Aquatics. Another great one there. You can see them all swimming around having a good time, even though they didn't want to swim all today for some reason. Anyway, we're going to carry on. We've got here another J Aquatics species. This one, they're actually swimming this time. We've got the Anulus, I believe you say that, or also known as the blue ring angelfish, or Promegathus anulurus, also known as the blue king angelfish or the blue ring angelfish. These guys are species of marine ray-finned fish, which is a marine angelfish, related to things like other types of angelfish, and the genus Promegnathus. They have a wide distribution that can be found in the Indo-West Pacific oceans from East Africa through Indonesia to New Guinea and New Caledonia, and north to southern Japan. So quite a wide range there. They typically live in coastal rocky coral reefs that may be also encountered in caves or on wrecks between depths of 3 to 30 meters deep, or between 9.8 to 98 feet deep. These guys of adults have a mainly yellow with a body marked with these kind of obvious arcing kind of red blue stripes going down their body there that kind of go to the operculum. They frequently have an elongated tip to their dorsal fin, and they have a white caudal fin on their margin there with a yellow margin. They also have a pair of blue stripes across their face, with one running through the eye and the second situated just beneath the eye, as you can see there. The juveniles also have a blue-blackish overall colour, and a thin white line and a blue colour curved lines around its body. Their dorsal fin has 13 spines and 20 to 21 soft rays, while the anal fin contains 3 spines and 20 soft rays. And this species it's quite a big fish. It attains a maximum total length of about 45 centimeters, or about 18 inches. So in terms of its behavior, these guys are frequently encountered in pairs. Similar to other species, these guys live in a harem, as the males will defend the territory that contains a few females. And after a courtship ritual, males and females release eggs and sperm. And beginning all the juveniles are female, so they're sequential hermaphrodites. And then they become male during development, which is a complete colour variation from the juvenile to adult stage. And juveniles prefer very shallow water with rocks or deep coral substrates. And the short filamentous algae, and they will feed on zooplankton, sponges, filamentous algae, and tourniquets. So there's quite a variety of diets there. The blue ring angelfish itself was first described in 1795 by German physician and naturalist Marcus Erbosch as Chamaelodon chaton tricolor, and give the type locality as the Indian Ocean. And it was placed in the 30s of the subgenus Anthracocelatodon. The scientific name Anurus means ringed. As you can see, it's got those kind of rings around its body there. And in terms of being found in the pet trade, they are infrequently found in the aquarium trade, so it's not impossible to find them, but they're not a particularly common one. They're like blue tangs where you spot them all the time. But yeah, another really cool species, also done by J Aquatics, which is a great one there. Definitely a big fan. So next up, we've got by Sky Polaris. We've got a remaster of their Narranduli Lion, so another really cool one there. So you can see he's changed the mane and everything about it, just made it a little bit better, but I'll go through quickly because I've already covered it, but we'll go through quickly what this lion is. So this lion is only known from a partial skull named Netodromi in northwestern Kenya. This guy is correlated with the member 1 of the Kibosh Formation, which is about 195 to 205,000 years ago, so it is kind of late Pleistocene, so quite an old one. The skull is often remarkable because of its great size, and it's equivalent to the largest fossil cave lions, or the Wabash cave lions, so Pantherofossilaris, of the Pleistocene of Eurasia. and was much larger than any known lions from Africa, living or fossil. And it's actually hypothesized that this individual represents a previously unknown population or subspecies of lion in the late middle to late Pleistocene in Eastern Africa. Or there's also some talks whether it could have been a cave lion, Fossilaris, migrating back to Africa. So it's a really interesting thing. I went a little bit more detail in the other video that had it. I can't remember the exact number, but you can see the changes to this are actually quite good. Definitely a big fan there. So yeah, really, really cool. And you can see the cute little babies here. Very, very cute. So yeah, not too interesting really, other than its size. There is some talks. Potentially, was it a, was it just a population of Fossilaris that stayed in Africa? Was it a population of Fossilaris that made its way down to Africa, and is kind of a reverse migration? Is it just an abnormally large population for whatever reason? But yeah, it's still quite cool. Definitely a big fan. Being 200,000 years ago might have been a bit cooler. Drives a bigger size. That's an example there. But yeah, really, really cool. So that was done by Sky Polaris. Next one is done by Kanu. This is the White Lion. So let's have a look at the White Lion. You guys will be familiar with this if you watched the new Mufasa movie. They're featured White Lions quite prominently on this. So these guys are actually not their own species or anything. They're just the same as your typical African lion, but they're actually a rare color mutation, and they can only be found in the area of Timbavani, and are thought to be indigenous to the Timbavani region of South Africa for centuries, although the earliest sighting in the region was in 1938. And they first became known to English-speaking world in 1977 through the books of the White Lions of Timbavani. So in terms of their description, these guys are not albinos, which is, a genetic mutation. This is called leucism, and it's actually caused by an allele that is found in the same locus as the allele that causes albinism. And it's thought this is actually something that is recessive. So it is recessive, so you have two animals with that recessive gene, then you'll get a white lion. So if you breed this guy with a normal lion, you might not get it because it's dominant, but if you keep breeding them with another white lions or lions that have those genes that are recessive, you will get white lions. So they vary from blonde to actually near white, and this coloration does not actually appear, even though a lot of people think so, it does not appear to impact their survival very much. And they were considered to be technically extinct in the wild between 1992 and 2004, when the Global White Lion Protection Trust actually reintroduced them into their habitat, and these prides actually continue to hunt and breed successfully in the wild, though there's been white lions now being born in the Great Kruger region since then. So inbreeding can cause several problems, such as different malformations in the brain and skull and spinal cord, however, as well. But luckily, ethical reintroduction programs have been trying to help with white lions, making sure they're not genetically closely related to each other. And they are quite common in captivity, as you could imagine, because of their, all interesting. How white tigers are common in captivity. These guys were quite common in captivity. They have started to go down in popularity, though, because a lot of zoos are more concerned about conservation, not looking for oddities like that. But in their genetics, they are the same subspecies, the same population as, the southern lion, and which is found on some wildlife preserves in South Africa and zoological parks around the world. But as I mentioned, they are leucistic. They do have pigment visible in the eyes. That's one of the ways you can tell an albino from a leucistic, is that often the pigment in the eyes is not available in albinos. But you can see it in a white lion. And they don't all, this is a recessive gene. In the gene for thioronase, which is kind of produces the melanins that give them their kind of coloring traits. These reduced pigments, kind of give them these white lions, and there's varieties that some get blonde and things like, white, as I mentioned. From the 1970 onwards, they were prized quite as a rarity. Carrying the white lion gene was removed from the wild and put in captive breeding programs, as they kind of release them and try to breed so much of them. But they did manage to re-release the genome or re-release white lions into the wild and help give those wild genes as well. So that's quite cool. A great conservation effort. The primary aim of the Global White Lion Protection Trust is to harness the cultural importance of white lions to their communities to help protect the cougar and canyon biosphere as well. And they've based it on the approach of the Kermode bear, which is a rare white variant of the American black bear, which is a critically endangered subspecies due to its conservation and cultural value. And have used the white lion as a flagship to try and protect areas of land. So that's quite cool, because people, the white lions, even though they're not genetically distinct really from your typical southern lion. They are, interesting and, definitely worth conserving. It's, genetics worth conserving. But yeah, well, quite cool that these guys, great conservation story, helping to not just conserve themselves, but as a great flagship to conserve large areas. And yeah, just a cool, funky genetic thing that we get. So that's quite cool. And we'll have a look at the babies because the babies are obviously quite cute. So you can see quite cute there. Very, very cute. All right, so next up we have got, this one's also done by Sky Polaris. We have got the Asiatic cheetah. So let's have a look at these guys here. So the Asiatic cheetah is one of 4 subspecies of cheetah. This is Aedyonyx jabaris venturus. These guys are a critically endangered subspecies of cheetah, now only found in Iran. They used to range over the Arabian Peninsula into the Near East, the Caspian region, the Transcaucasus, into North and Southeast Asia as well. But they became extirpated from most of their range during the 20th century. And they are believed to have diverged from cheetahs in Africa between 32,000 and 67,000 years ago. So in terms of taxonomy, they were originally considered their own species, and then there was also Felis futura and Enteronox radii was also proposed, but now it's considered to be those few species there, their own subspecies. These guys now survive in protected areas in the eastern central arid regions of Iran, where the human populations are very low. Between December 2011 and November 2013, 84 individuals were cited, and 84 individuals were cited. And then December 20 is believed to be fewer than 50 since December 2017. And of April 2024, there have been 5 Asiatic cheetahs reside in a breeding facility in the country. So they are a critically endangered subspecies of cheetah. So as I mentioned, they believe to have split from these African cheetah between 32 to 67,000 years ago. And a lot of these genetics was taken from captive and wild or seized museum specimens as well. And so they seem to have diverged about 72,000 years ago. So these guys are not too different from the African cheetahs. They have a buff to light fawn colour fur that is paler on the sides and on the muzzle as well. And between the eyes and in the legs. Small black spots are arranged from the head to nape, but are irregularly scattered across the body. The tail has black stripes, and the coat and mane is shorter those of African cheetah subspecies. And the head to body length of an adult Asiatic cheetah measures between 112 to 135 centimeters, or 44 to 253 inches, with a 66 to 84 centimeter, or 26 to 33 inch tail. And they weigh between 34 and 54 kilograms, between 75 and 119 pounds. And they do exhibit sexual dimorphism, so the males are much larger. This is quite a big male, and he's also got, that patternless morph to him. So just like other cheetahs, they're the fastest animal in the world. They previously thought that the temperature and the body temperature of a cheetah was increased during the hunt in a short period of time. But they pretty much, just hunt pretty much the same as other cheetahs. Not too different. In terms of the distribution and habitat, they thrive in open lands, small plains, semi-desert areas, and other open habitats with available prey. The Asiatic cheetah mainly inhabits desert areas around the Dish of Kavar in the east of Iran, the includes parts of Kerman, Yazud, Tehran, and Mazaki provinces, with a few protected areas as well. During the 1970s, the Asiatic cheetah population in Iran was estimated to be about 200 individuals, but as I mentioned, now it's kind of dwindled down to potentially, 80 with during like 2001 and 2012, potentially 42 cheetahs died to poaching or road accidents or died of natural causes. So that's quite sad there. But their former range, they did have quite a wide range. They used to range into India, Afghanistan, Central Asia, near east to Iran and the Caucasus. So they did live in quite a wide range. They were actually still recorded in the desert of Iraq until 1926. And the last ones found in Oman was shot in 1977. The Afghanistan population was extirpated about the 1950s, and in India, they were kind of hanging around the Deccan Plateau. And the last time there was Indian cheetahs was shot was in 1951. So that's sad over their extinction, though. In terms of their biology, the most sightings of cheetahs in the Metropolitan Wildlife Reserve found them during the day near watercourses, so they do like water. And camera trapping does show that these guys travel long distances, with a female recorded moving about 150 square kilometers apart from each other, and they're separated by 2 highways. And the 3 male siblings and a different not male record in these areas, so they do have quite large home ranges. In terms of their diet, the Asiatic cheetah doesn't have too dissimilar prey from African cheetah, just different species. They prey on medium-sized herbivores such as chikara, greater gazelle, wild sheep, wild goat, and Cape hare. In the Kataran National Park, they have a wide range of habitats, and their habitat overlaps with wild sheep and Ognaran gazelle. And in India, they were formerly abundant, and they probably fed on black buck, the chikara, and sometimes even chital and nilgai, which is quite interesting as well. Evidence of females successfully raising cubs, though, is scarce, and they do rarely breed in captivity, which is typical of other cheetahs, because cheetahs are quite hard to breed in captivity. A few observations around indicate that they give birth throughout the year to 1 to 4 cubs, and in April 2003, 4 cubs found a den still had their eyes closed. In the twinning form, they found them trapped in, and they were kind of recorded about 16 months old, running around. So there seemed to be some breeding as well. A female Asiatic cheetah actually raised 3 litters of cubs and was considered to be the most prolific living female as of 2024. And a daughter from 2019 litter, Talma, actually gave birth in 2022 as well. So there is still some cheetahs, making babies and stuff. That's what we want. In terms of their threats, though, they do face quite a few threats. They are considered critically endangered. One big issue is armed vehicles, or maneuvers with armed vehicles were carried on the steppes, and they hunted cheetah and their prey species unchecked. Other issues is reduced gazelle numbers, persecution, changes in land use. We'll have a look at the cute little babies while we talk about that, just to make it a little bit nicer. Land use and deforestation or desertification has become a big issue for the decline in cheetah populations. Losing prey to eat, just all those have just contributed to them becoming endangered, critically endangered. Also, mining and road construction near reserves has threatened the population because there's a lot of copper and iron mines as well. Also, the Iran border of Afghanistan and Pakistan is actually a major passages for armed outlaws and opium smugglers, which are active in the region where Asiatic cheetahs are hanging out now. So it's really hard for people to go in to study them or to conserve them because there's it's a border, so it's heavily patrolled, but also wars and smugglers and stuff like that. So it's quite dangerous to go around there. Conflict between livestock is a big issue as well, and they'll obviously attack livestock. Several herders will actually kill them to protect livestock, either for trophies or trade or just for fun, which is a bit sad as well. But luckily there is some conservation work going to protect them. So lots of groups, are going to protect them. They've been radio tracking them just to keep an eye on them. Orphan cubs have also been raised in captivity. So that's quite cool as well. And Iran has actually started to take the cheetah as kind of one of their spoke species. So, trying to give, kind of awareness to this subspecies and putting them on shirts and things and that. Iran had them on the 2014 football team, the Asiatic cheetah. So that's quite cool. And, also they're talking about making wildlife crossings so cheetah can cross highways and stuff and reduce traffic deaths. And they're also semi-common in captivity. There is the semi-captive breeding and research program running in cheetahs in Iran. There's also some found in refuges as well. And actually, in 2014, there was one cloned for the first time, but the embryo was not born. But luckily there is some efforts to really help them. A lot of the babies that have been born have died of different issues because mesenteric cheetahs are still quite difficult to breed in captivity. But they've been helping them out quite a bit, so it's good to see that there's a lot of people caring about these cheetah. So yeah, that's another cool one there that was done by Sky Polaris, another great one. Next up, we've got Great Cakes Mod, back with an eagle. We've got here the Bellator, so this is another really cool species here. So this is the Bellator, the cool species eagle. If you remember me playing Ancestors, you would recognize this species. So this is Tetratophis edgeculatus, also known as the Balaguer eagle, or Bellator. These guys are a medium-sized eagle in the family Insipteridae. They were often considered a relative to snake eagles, and like them, they were in the group of snake eagles, but they're considered their own thing. It is the only member of its genus Faraday, and is maybe the origin of the Zimbabwe bird, which is the national emblem of Zimbabwe. So quite a cool species. As I mentioned, they were thought to be related to snake eagles, but they're related to true eagles, which is interesting as well. And the name Balaguer is kind of French for street performer, and their name in Latin comes from marvelous face without a tail. So that's kind of what their name means in Latin. So what kind of makes these guys quite distinct is that they have a unique morphology in plumage. They have some anatomical similarities to both snake eagles and vultures, so that's why they were considered related to snake eagles. The species has a thick neck and a very large, rather conspicuous cowled head with a proportionally short bill and a very large cirrus, so that's kind of the bit of skin between the beak and the face. There, the cow is also present snake eagles, but not quite as prominent. They have an extremely upright posture. They've got stumpy, rather oddly stumpy short legs and a short tail, which is actually the shortest proportionally to all raptors. Very upright posture. That looks quite tall, despite its short legs. These adults have that chestnut coloration across the mantle, and you've got these dark colours. You can see the chestnut colour there, and they're predominantly black and white with grey shoulders and black tips. And there's actually a cream morph available as well, and the bare parts tend to be extremely conspicuous. They have very much a pink, bright pink colour there. However, in some they actually temporarily fade to pink or yellowish in times as well. And the juveniles are quite distinct, so we'll have a look at the juveniles. Let's see if we can spot one there. You can see they're basically, just all covered in white, and they have much lighter colours there. So you can see he's flying there. Let's see if we can have a look. Really, really cool, even though he's floating in the air. In flight, they do appear like a rather large raptor, and they're disproportionately elongated, rather narrow and slightly bow-shaped wings that appear pinched at the base. They also have a kind of a large head that's just slightly larger than even their snake eagle lookalikes. The tail is so short, in adult Balaguers, is that the feet extends beyond the tail tip. That almost gives the impression they have no tail. This is opposed to juveniles, where the feet come up about 5 centimeters short, and then shrinks via maturity. So by the time they reach their 5 years old, they kind of reach that point where their legs extend past their tail feathers. The adult male is mostly black above with a chestnut and tail and grey forewings. Below here is black on the body, contrasting a chestnut as well. The adult female is pretty similar, but it has a black tip, grey secondaries on as well. The juveniles are pretty much uniformly brown. In terms of size, they are a mid to large size raptor. They're likely the 7th largest in their subfamily, but by far the largest is the Philippine eagle. One traditional snake eagle, the brown snake eagle, rivals it in most things, including body mass, but has a large tail and slightly shorter but broader wings as well. So a typical length of this bird is about 55 to 70 centimeters, or 22 to 28 inches. And the typical length for a full-grown bird is typically about 63 centimeters. The wingspan can go between 1.68 to 1.9 meters, or about 5'6" to 6'3", and they weigh between 1.8 to 3 kilograms on average. And there seems to be some sex dimorphism, with females being slightly larger, but it's not too kind of over the top. And they are quite silent birds, but they will make the occasional kind of squawk call or barking calls like that of a fish eagle and things like that. But they have a very large range. They're typically found across most of sub-Saharan Africa. So they can be found from West Africa, down to Mauritius, Senegal, and Nigeria, south into Sudan and Chad, down to Congo, down into Botswana and South Africa. So quite a wide range. So a very, very wide range. And they tend to be nomadic. Primarily, as I mentioned, they found in open savanna or on woodlands. During breeding, though, they require close canopy savanna woodland habitat, including acacia trees as well. The only areas they don't really be found in are areas that are pure desert or rainforests, so those extremes. But they tend to be found in more open areas. In terms of behavior, they're usually conspicuous due to their propensity for gliding flights over much favorable habitat. They seem to be spend a considerable amount of time on the wing, particularly in low altitude flights. And due to this conspicuous and colourful plumage, they actually consider one of the most spectacular and beautiful things that flies, which is quite cool as well. After takeoff, they'll actually sails at a mean speed of about 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, and they're actually quite similar to that of the American turkey vulture, and kind of almost like a huge falcon, which is quite interesting as well. Typical home ranges can be about 40 kilometers for a pair, and then they will monitor that, looking for prey and things like that. They're also generally solitary. However, juveniles may accompany one or both their parents for about 3 months, and as many as 40 or 50 have been recorded, but they were mainly immature ones. These aggregations can be around carrion, bushfires, recently burnt areas, or by termite emergences. So these kind of things will encourage them to come hang out together. And generally, as in most raptors, they are considered sedentary and territorial, but they do have a very large home range. However, they sometimes can become more migratory, so they might move these territories and kind of maintain them, especially in areas like West or East Africa, to avoid the heavy rains as well. And they can disperse as far as 285 kilometers, which is quite interesting as well. And one cool behavior they do is that they'll spend a lot of their time thermoregulating, so they'll often be spending lots of time in the sun to warm off or bathing to cool off, so that's something that they'll do as well. Local nicknames have also called them the conifer eagle or the pine eagle due to its feathers remaining resembling a conifer cone when furled up when they're trying to, thermoregulate. And at times, they've also, what's very interesting as well, they will often prey. They would allow ants to crawl over their wings and feathers, collecting bits of food, dead feathers, and skin material. That's when they ruffle their feathers and startle the ants, and they secrete formic acid as self-defense, and this actually kills ticks and fleas, which is quite interesting as well. In terms of their dietary behavior, they are considered generalists, so they will forage in flight, flying mostly low, predatorily banking and retreating, looking for prey. They can spend up to 8 to 9 hours of a day on the wing looking for prey, and when food is spotted, they will do tight spirals. And they're quite effective at looking for carrion and roadkills, and while they're considered, quite good at scavenging, they're not very much a scavenger species. They like to hunt as well, and they also collect parasites. They forage almost entirely based on opportunity, and they have no really special, particular prey type. They have been known to eat about 160 different prey species, and then they rival martial eagles, and they're slightly behind the tawny eagles in terms of their most diversified prey. Eat quite a wide variety of food. About 2/3, about half of it is its mammals diet, about 2/3 of their diet being mammal carrion. 23 of the diet's birds, 15% reptiles, 2% fish, and 2% invertebrates. So yeah, quite a wide one. Different studies looking at them, they tend to eat a lot of hares and hyrax and rats and things, galagos and guinea fowl. They'll also eat lots of doves, starlings, and stuff like that. They'll even eat carrion from like small antelope, and even impalas been recorded. Also skinks, mongooses, dik-diks. So quite a wide range of things that they'll eat. Live food is typically a bit smaller, medium-sized animals, so they'll often eat shrews, things like that, like mice, gerbil, shrews, veil rats, cane rats, spring hares, even occasionally when they eat porcupines, it's from carrion. Most African species as well, and hedgehogs and elephant shrews and other sorts of small carnivorous mammals like banded mongoose and Selagus mongoose may be prey for these guys. But also, carrying eyes on Grimsbok and buffalo and things like that. They'll also been seen to eat velvet monkeys and baboons and scavenging on them, but they mostly eat small animals. They have been even seen killing adult black-backed jackals, honey badgers, and aardwolves, which is both twice their weight, so that's a very interesting one as well. So they are considered quite a wide diet. Pretty much anything, whatever they can get, they will eat pretty much. As long as it's, in the kill range. And whatever they can't kill, they just scavenge it. And they do eat quite a wide variety of birds, including plovers, lapwings, nightjars, shorebirds, starlings. Even like waterfowl and spoonbills have been recorded. Bustards, also reptiles that eat a lot of snakes. They do not seem to shy away from venomous snakes and have been known to take boomslangs, Egyptian cobras, puff adders, and mambas, which is quite cool. And they do have some relationships that are quite interesting, interpacific relationships with different other, like the tawny eagle. They overlap and eat similar prey, so they do sometimes fight each other for prey. They'll all prey on, and others African hawk eagles will all prey on dik-diks as well. Vultures are often present at carrion, and the balagar can begin the foraging early in the morning. so they can kind of beat a lot of vultures to the carrion since they're smaller and able to ride on, fly a bit better than vultures, because the vultures will need kind of the updrafts to take flight later in the day, then they don't appear later in the day, so they'll often beat the vultures to carrion, which is quite cool. They've also been documented preying on barn owls, spotted owls, eagle owls, predatory falcons, and stuff like that, so quite a wide range there. Oh, there's so much to talk about these Balagar eagles. They're quite cool. They're long-lived species, very similar to other eagles, and they will court to each other and re-establish existing pair bonds kind of every year. They do quite an extravagant flight, actually quite similar to other eagles, where they kind of fly around and do lateral rolls. And those doing those kind of displays, so that's how they display to each other. They are usually rather monogamous, and they typically will most time mate for life, though there's occasional records of monogamy. They do nest in fairly large trees. They prefer things like acacia trees or Adansona trees, but they do prefer nesting near a watercourse on hilly or open flat terrain. They build quite a large nest, about a medium-sized sticks that's about 60 centimeters across, 30 centimeters deep, and a leafy cup that's about 25 centimeters across. Is what they typically find. In terms of their eggs and development, there's only one egg is ever laid, and an egg is actually quite large for this bird, for the size of the bird, being broadly oval and kind of a chalky white. They're quite similar in size to coloration of most snake eagles, but they will only lay that single egg. We'll have a talk about the baby while we get a chance. Let's see if we can spot it there. There he is. Okay, so the egg measures about 74.2 to 87 millimeters in height and an average 77 millimeters in length. And that size, so quite a big round egg, comparable in size to crown eagles. And the female is fed by the male, but takes spells off where he can probably feeds on her own kills, and the male takes over incubation, though she does the majority of the incubation. And the incubation itself lasts about 52 to 59 days, averaging about 55 days, which may be the longest of any African raptor. And the babies are born highly attritial, so they're pretty much not ready to go out the box. They rely very heavily on their parents, even potentially more so than other eagles, being able to lift its own heavy head, and has a deeply wrinkled cirri. So then about 2 weeks after they kind of hatch and they begin to be somewhat more active, and the parents will help them out. In 3 weeks, they have a kind of downy white head. In 4 weeks, they no longer have any white down and have black or white colours. And about 7 weeks ago, then their forewings grow rapidly and be complete about 35 days old. The last remaining coverts around it that way as well. And the nestling they first stand about 5 weeks. And in about 6 weeks, they can typically feed itself for the first time. So that's typically when they start fledging. And fledging occurs between 90 to 125 days, with some reported as extreme as 93 days and as late as 194 days. That's about 3 to 4 months is when they kind of become independent, and start to go off and do their own thing as well. And in terms of parental behavior, they do seem to be quite protective of their nests as well, so they are quite protective parents, which is quite cool. But in terms of conservation, they are a wide-ranging species, but have shown some slow declines. They are believed to have declined a little bit. They are considered, I believe, least concern. No, they are endangered. No, they're endangered, so there has been some major declines there. We'll get into that. Currently, the IUCN estimates the population between 10,000 to 100,000 individuals. The numbers in South Africa have showed the most drastic reductions. Some areas they've declined from 2 to 2,500 pairs, and now down to like 470 pairs. And they have declined an estimated 75% in Southern Africa, and they have had some declines around the place. Generally, they are also found much more commonly in protected areas. However, in even some protected areas, they are believed to be decreasing. These are because of issues such as anthropogenic causes, mainly habitat destruction, the poisoning of carcasses, because a lot of people will poison carcasses, and that gets rid of a lot of the birds and things. Prosecution for shooting and pesticide use. So stuff that, if you remember the story of the peregrine falcon, DDT, weakening the shells of their eggs. This is another great example of that. They potentially could have had that with DDT from farming. It's a big issue. Some trapping also occurs because they're used by local medicine, by traditional healers, for predicting future events. Other collisions as well, shrinking habitats, another big thing is they will often, lose habitat to livestock and things like that, and that causes their rates to plummet. So a lot of the same things impacting birds of prey around the world are impacting the balagar eagles, but luckily there is some efforts like monitoring and stuff like that trying to help them. So they're not right on the cusp of extinction yet, but they are in danger because there's obviously these big issues that are impacting them. Be another great cakes mod, always a winner. Do love a great cakes mod, and really nice to talk about this eagle. If you remember Ancestors, this one was featured quite prominently, so it was quite cool to see this one here. Definitely a big fan. So yeah, last but certainly not least, we've got Narwhal back with a mod. I love a Narwhal mod. Here we've got the short-faced bear. This is Arctodus. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about this guy because I've already covered him before in quite good detail. But this is believed to be the greater short-faced bear. So there are two different species of the short-faced bear recognized: the lesser short-faced and the greater giant short-faced. This is the Sumus, which is the great giant short-faced bear. Out of these guys, they are much larger and is actually much more well-known, and considered one of the best known of North America's Ice Age megafauna. And the other species is known from the early Pleistocene, so it's not quite as well known. Arctodus was first described by Joseph Liddy in 1854, which Arctodus just means bear tooth. And as I mentioned, they are actually considered to be related to the modern spectacled bear, so they are related to the American bears, which is quite cool. In terms of size, Sumus would have been quite large. They would have got about 2.4 to 3.4 meters, standing on their hind legs, about 8 to 11 feet. And walking on all fours, they would have been about 5'5", and the largest males being tall enough to look a human in the eye just by standing. And the weight has been estimated to be about 625 kilograms, with the maximum recorded being 975. So a bit bigger than a polar bear, which is quite cool. And they're thought to be also quite sexually dimorphic, with males being quite about 40% larger than the females, which is akin to spectacled bears, their closest living relatives, where the males are about 40% larger than females as well. And actually, 2025 mitochondrial study actually affirmed the sexual dimorphism as well, with sexual dimorphic clades in uniform population being described in these populations as well. So that's quite cool there. Arctodus is quite a cool one. So the family itself would have gotten to America during the late Miocene and would have evolved in America in about the genetic divergence of Arctodus to other kind of species of bears about 4.8 million years ago, where these bears would have kind of diversified quite a bit. Arctodus first appears in the early Pleistocene with that first species I was on about before, and then it was most likely restricted to the more densely forest areas of eastern North America, with a lot of them being actually found in Florida. And then Simus was actually the most plentiful western form in western North America and quite expanded quite a bit. Its range may have met in the middle Pleistocene in Kansas as well, but then both Arctodus species inhabited North America for at least 500,000 years during the middle Pleistocene. But then the giant short-faced bear kind of took over there, with the short-faced bear becoming extinct, during the great extinction of the megafaunal extinction as well. See, that's quite cool, interesting there. In terms of anatomy, the two species are different not only by size, but they've also got a shorter snout, more robust limbs than the Simus. So generally, the giant short-faced bear is just bigger, more robust in that regard. And members of the Tremarctine family of bears, or the short-faced bears, we could say, they are known for having quite a short face. And Arctodus has been argued to exhibit a wide and shortened rostrum, and giving it also more feline-like appearance, but also it's quite a broad snout. However, this apparent shortness is illusion, caused by the deep snouts and short nasal bones of Tremarctine bears compared to the ursine bears. So there's things, as I mentioned, like your typical bear, like your brown bear, your polar bear, and things like that. They also have particularly small orbits, which actually suggests that they may have been more carnivorous or more predatory than grizzly bears and brown bears, which is interesting as well. So they may have been not quite as predatory, some of the things as well. They have muscular characteristics common in herbivorous bears. They've potentially had a lot in common with, spectacled bears, which are, just like pandas, mostly herbivores. in terms of its anatomy as well. They have seemed to have kind of cogently evolved wide teeth and other teeth more similar to those of giant pandas and Hemiscion and Angolotherium, another group of short-faced bears, which is quite interesting. In terms of its interpretation of its limb morphology, they interpret them as kind of a long-limbed animal, but this long-limbed appearance is actually kind of an illusion created by the animal's shorter back and torso. And also a lot of reconstructions don't actually put the right amount of fur and flesh on the animal, which this one actually does quite well. But you can also see it is accentuated, kind of. It's got a longer limb feature, but it's not sick like most short-faced bear reconstructions. We'll have a look at the female because he's got enough of a look on. They give it almost like the gracile appearance, but partly due that's because it's reconstructed. And it sort of had a gait actually quite similar to that of a polar bear, both having to wander across large areas, so that makes sense. Researchers also disagree with interpreting the humerus. Some argue that pronation is actually kind of similar to was cursorial and grasping large prey. It is less powerful than Arctodus and either brown bears or Panthera, so they would have been more adapted for walking, and potentially more adept at pursuing large prey than polar and brown bears. So that's quite interesting as well. Also quite large paws, long slender paws that they have as well. And we actually do have trackways of these guys. They're like the Oregon that has strong toe splaying, 3 centrally lined and evenly spaced toes, with an oval kind of undivided pad, like modern bears, so not too different in that regard. In terms of locomotion, they would have had a highly efficient, moderate speed pacing gait, so that would allow them to wander across large areas, unlike most modern bears. They also, large body size, like that would have been, quite good at wandering large distances as well. And also maturity, examinations of mostly fully sized 4 to 6 year old female of the species actually suggest that they reach sexual maturity well before full maturity, and so we know about it as well. And there's also been some genetic research on them as well, which is quite interesting. They do have a notably low genetic diversity, comparable with wide-ranging solitary carnivores like pumas and lynx as well. So we do think they would have quite low genetic diversities. And there's no evidence of subspecies. There's been talk about subspecies, but there's really no evidence of subspecies. And the kind of last populations we have were about living about 16,000 to 4,000 years ago, or something like that. And there's even some looking at the population sizes between 4,000 and 16,500 individuals, or 7,500 individuals. So they weren't a very common animal on the landscape. Thinking as well, there has been suggested of the hibernation. There have been some found in Arctodus being almost exclusively found in cave sites. In a lot of them are from caves, considering close association between these guys, denning and caves. Like polar bears, male and unmated female Airsimus would have forgone denning and kind of done their own thing in the winter, but they would have denned if they had babies as well. They also suggest the most abundant claw marks are those from Arctodus, and the most abundant the bear beds and the passageways in close relationship with denning. Numerous bear beds often preserve these guys in both Pleistocene and modern American black bears, which is quite interesting as well. And they would have actually potentially shared their caves with black bears, which are native to North America. In terms of their diet, there has been some studies looking into these guys and their diet. It's been a debate. The fact that Arctodus does not differ very much from modern bears and dentition suggests they would have been omnivorous like most modern bears, but the amount of how much they've been debated and how it's been interpreted of how much meat and plants they would eat has been very much debated. There has been some, they even talk about a potential false thumb that could have been associated with vegetation found on these guys, and suggest carnivory as well. While features of Arctodus morphology do suggest herbivory, their close relationship with omnivorous spectral bears also come into question as well. And as I mentioned, they do have adaptations for walking around on the plains. They have large size, strong jaws. Potentially, they could have been very much a predator as well. And there have been some evidence as well, potentially when they met with brown bears, these guys kind of became more carnivorous, and brown bears became more herbivorous, kind of to avoid competition. And there's evidence also suggests that they did definitely eat meat. Carbon isotopes suggest they were eating browsers, and browse vegetation were a good part of their diet, so they were eating a lot of browse things. And its status as a predator is questioned by its lack of agility and its gracility, so it would have been not very good at chasing prey. And nevertheless, larger males have been suggested to be more carnivorous than females, as very large brown bears are not able to sustain themselves on just the vegetarian diet. And also, their diet may have actually varied quite a bit depending on where they lived. Some areas would have had more carnivorous bears just because there's plants around. Some areas would have been more herbivorous because there's all those plants around. So that's kind of how it works out. And there's also evidence of bone damage in many different animals, such as young proboscideans, juvenile mammoths and mastodons, with bite marks that could have only come from proboscideans as well. And these damaged bones may have actually, they've been coming and chewed them as well, so they definitely could have been scavenged and maybe even killed by these giants here. And also Beringia as well, they show high concentrations, bones in Alaska, so high concentrations of nitrogen 15 there. And, these dental patterns that are consistent with Arctodus simus, and likely would have eaten C3 vegetation, which is partly caribou, so they would have eaten a lot of caribou there and scavenge on ungulates. But isotope studies actually suggest, have argued to indicate carnivory. Even the isotope data, the most carnivorous Beringian Arctodus is overlapped with modern, typically omniherbivoral herbivorous brown bears from Europe, eastern Wyoming, and central Montana. So they cannot distinguish between being a hypercarnivore and an omnivore, but it may not have been just different depending on the populations. So most evidence suggests that they were very much, kind of more like modern bears, being both carnivores and herbivores, be those omnivores. In terms of their paleoecology, they would have lived, as I mentioned, they're mostly considered a mostly colossal, opportunistic omnivore with a flexible diet akin to a brown bear. And if they weren't largely herbivorous, the scavenging of megahorrible carcasses and also occasional kills would have worked. And they've sometimes been referred to as the great short-faced bear or the bulldog bear. So they would have lived in large areas and low densities. We know that there's kind of, they range pretty much all across North America, and they're relatively plentiful in Western North America, where they've been kind of found in, referred to the camelops as well. So they would have also, their habitats would have had Shasta ground sloths, American lions, scrub ox, prairie dogs, dwarf pronghorns, and things like that. So quite a wide variety of large mammals as well. So yeah, depending on where they are, there was a wide variety of animals they lived with. And in some other areas, they would have lived with, dire wolves as well, and been associated with the species, as they probably would have stolen their carcasses. Scrub ox, pronghorns as well, in the intermountain plateaus, the inner plains, so like the Great Plains. They would have been around ground sloths, mastodons, camels, and Columbian mammoths, so a lot of those areas were similar species. And they would have up into Beringia, there would have been, the closest they would have lived into the mammoth steppe, even though they didn't get into the Asia. There have been evidence they may have become more larger in the Yukon and would have lived with woolly mammoths and muskox and bison and Saiga antelope as well, and cave lions, and may have actually become more carnivorous to live with brown bears as well. But yeah, quite a wide range there. And the relationship with other bears, they are both brown bears and Arctodus exhibit a high degree of diet variability, and while largely herbivorous, meat can be an important part of their diet. So there was suggested that Simus was outcompeted by brown bears, but that doesn't really hold up. By the end of the Pleistocene, one reasons brown bears may have existed because Arctodus may have been a little bit less flexible in adapting to new changes in food quality, because being a bigger animal, obviously, you need more food. And high quality food, so that may have been a big issue for them as well. The Beringia, they've kind of looked, they had a high trophic level compared with invading brown bears. So these guys may have been more carnivorous, while, as I mentioned, those other bears would have been more herbivorous, those brown bears. In terms of the interaction with humans, there has been one documented interaction with Clovis people where they may have potentially butchered a bear. And it actually suggested that these guys and other large carnivores may have actually prevented other carnivores coming into the Americas, since there was kind of nowhere for them to go because, you know, these bears already taken the niches. But yeah, they had quite a wide range. In terms of their extinction, that's quite a, you know, sad thing, their extinction. That was mostly because of, just mentioning like climate change. It's basically the same thing that we always talk about, you know, the great extinction of the Pleistocene. Potentially, you know, either it was humans or climate or disease, or potentially a combination of all things, or different things in different places. I don't need to explain it like for the 30th time. But yeah, it's definitely a complicated debate. Some factors believe to be, you know, the depletion of large herbivores, which they may have been, you know, scavenging or hunting. Competition with brown bears and humans, which were both omnivores that took more food as well. Though there's not multiple studies that put doubt on the brown bears taking them to extinction, as these guys as well. Climate change are the big issue. You know, a lot of changes in the climate, they couldn't have adapted to them. Low genetic diversity, as I mentioned, being a species unlike brown bears, which have much smaller ranges and much higher population densities. These would have been animals that lived in large ranges at low population densities, so that genetic diversity would have mean they just couldn't have adapted as well. That means they have a reduced ability to adapt to environmental changes. And with the last dates of them being found between about 10,000, 12,000 years ago, that's when they are believed to have gone extinct as well. But yeah, there's been a lot of research of these guys. You consider them being a super predator, but most kind of evidence suggests that these guys were definitely more similar to modern bears, being an omnivore, probably a little bit more of a carnivore, depending on where you are. But you know, these guys had huge varied diets. But anyway, great one by Nowala. I really like how Nowala made this one that, you know, that's very much, you know, a bit more bulky and a bit more accurately constructed compared to modern other reconstructions of these bears that make them look really lanky and weird. He put the right amount of fluff on them, and I think he did a really good job. And he made a cute little baby too, because how can you not like the cute little baby? A very, very cute little baby. So we'll actually let them stand up a bit, and then we can show off, you know, the beautiful design they have. I just want to see him wake up. Very, very cute, aren't they? They're all very, very cute. Dude loves sleeping. But yeah, that's really cool. Like, it's really cool to talk about how the debate stuff, how people debate about these things. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with these bears, and you can see it's got that lanky design, or that we know from the fossils, but it's bulky enough and accurately reconstructed, in my opinion, just to make it, you know, got the proper muscle, because mammals have a lot of muscle and fur that makes them a lot rounder than a lot of people draw some of these species as. That people often forget that mammals have a lot of fluff and soft tissue. They shrink wrap them like dinosaurs. But you can see, as I mentioned here, you can see it's definitely got a shorter torso and longer legs than most bears, but it's not to the point where it's reconstructed way too skinnily, so it's not like just skin and bone. I think he did a pretty good job with that. So, yeah, we'll have a quick look at the baby, you know. Oh, no, that's not what we wanted to do. Have a quick look at the baby. So, yeah, I think this is a great place to end the video. We'll have a look at the baby while we talk about them. So let's actually just let you... Are you just going to stand there? I want to see you in the light, because, you know... These guys don't like playing ball today. I guess they don't. Let's just move you. There we are. So here you are in the light. Very, very cute. Nice little baby bear. And you can see Dad there. Really, really nice. Alright, I think this is a great place to end the video. So I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified of anything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe. And bye-bye.